I will show you how to solve this Sudoku using my exclusive techniques that you can use on any puzzle and cut your solve time by up to 50%. And with that, it's solving time. Don't start over here in block 1. Instead, look at where all the ones can be in the puzzle. And you may notice with these ones and this one, you can solve for a 1 right here in block 3. Then with these two ones and this one, you can solve for a 1 right there in block 2. Greetings, friend. This is the first puzzle from my latest rewards puzzle pack. Akash Doulani made all new puzzles just for this pack, and he threw a few tricks in here that you may get you stuck for a while if you don't see them. Using the techniques I've learned from solving hundreds of Sudokus, I will show you the quickest way to solve each cell and cut your normal solve time by up to 50%. So notice with these ones now, you only have 2 places for a 1 right here and 2 places for a 1 right there. And so you want to mark that to find the digit restrictions anytime you only have 2 possibilities for a candidate in a 3x3 block. These ones are a little special because since they have to be in this row in this block, they can't be anywhere else in that row, which means they can't be here anymore. And so with these 2 ones and this one and this pointing pair of ones is what it's called, you can solve for 1 right there in block 5. Nothing else you can do with the 1s. If you look at the 2s, with these 2s, no restrictions or solves you can do right away. But you do want to go through each of the digits to make sure that you give them each a look over. Let's look at the 3s. Nothing you can solve just yet with the 3s or make any marks. But the 4s, you can see with these 4s right here, you can solve for a 4 in block 5. And then these 4s and this 4, 2 places for a 4 in block 8. And now you can look and see with this 4 and these 4s, 2 places for a 4 in block 1. Look at the 5s with this 5 and this 5 coming down. You have a nice pointing pair of 5s in block 5. So a 5 can't be here or no place to put a 5 in block 5. It leaves 3 5s here. You do not want to mark that. You only want to mark when there's 2 possibilities. But I'm going to show you a nice little time saver here. It's going to cut down your solve time probably by a couple minutes. You don't see any other marks of 5s, but if you notice, you have 5 digits filled out right here. 1, 2, 3, 4, and an 8, all in this row. And then look at this cell right here. But you may notice that in addition to 1, 2, 3, 4, you have 6, 7, 8 here, and a 9 in the block. There's only one possibility for this cell. This is a naked single 5. And if you find that when you're going through and looking for these hidden singles and restrictions, you're going to cut your solve time down quite a bit, because what it does is allows you to see these 2 5s in this 5 to solve for 5 in block 1. And now you can mark these 5s right here in block 7. Nothing else with the 5s. If you look at the 6s, you'll see with this 1 6, there's only 2 places for a 6 in block 2. You can see we solved quite a few cells and we're making quite a bit of progress. And I'll explain to you what this red cell here is in just a bit. Look at the 7s, nothing going on there. And then with the 8s, you might see with these 2 8s, you can solve for an 8 in block 2. And with these 2 8s and this 8, you can solve for an 8 in block 3. And then with these 8s, 2 places for an 8 in block 4, and with these 2 8s and this 8, 2 places for an 8 in block 9. And so an 8 could possibly be in this red cell. The importance of the red cell is if you have my entire puzzle pack, you solve this cell, you're going to decode it for a letter, and then there's a red digit in every other puzzle in the pack. And you use all those digits to decode to letters and come up with a word for the final solution. It's just some added value I put in the puzzle packs to make them fun, and that's when you hear people get shout outs, is when they get this final solution correct and send it to me before the end of the month. Nothing else you can do with the 8s. Let's move on to the 9s. You'll see with those 2 9s, 2 places for a 9 in block 1 and 2 places for a 9 in block 9. Doesn't seem to be any more solves here. And so this is another tip for you of where to go next, because this is where you could lose a lot of time. You do want to go back through, but you want to emphasize pairs this time. So when you see some pairs, 2 digits and 2 cells, mark them. In particular, look right here. You know, I'm going to focus on block 3 because it's a heavy house. It has at least 6 digits filled out, right? It's got a 1, 3, 5, 6, 8, 9. So at least 5. It actually has 6 filled out. So this could be a 2, 4, or 7. With this 7 right there, that could be a 2 or a 4. However, if you notice this 2 cutting across and this 2 coming up the column, there's only 2 places for a 2 in block 1. Since they're in the same row, it's a pointing pair, right? So if you put a 2 here, you'd run out of places to put a 2 in block 1. So you know this can't be a 2. So you can actually solve that now for a 4. And this is huge, because once you solve that, you can now notice that you have some pairs. So you can do a 2, 7 right there. But this 4 also displaces the 4 in block 1. So now you can solve this for a 4, displacing that 9. And the key here to improve your solve time is you want to look at the impact of a solve on the row, column, and block. So with this 4, in the block, you solve this 2, 7. In the row, you displace that 4 and solve this for a 4 and solve that for a 9. Also, the impact is you have a 3, 9 pair to finish these cells. You have a 6, 7 naked pair to finish up block 2. Now look at the column. Because you put a 4 here, what does that do for these cells? You got a 4 here, and this 4, you can solve that cell now for a 4 because of that 4 now in the column. And this is why I want to look at the impact of row, column, and block. And before I show you the next place to look, I want you to know there may be a way to keep your mind razor sharp for years to come. I make these monthly puzzle packs exclusively for Smarty Party members. And what this means to you is you can practice Sudoku skills in a fun and challenging way. And the real value is learning new strategies from these packs will build your brain's resilience to damage and prevent dementia by up to 29%. Look at what this member had to say about one of my recent puzzle packs. So click on the pinned comment to join the Smarty Party now, because you want to keep a sharp mind, right? And so now let's stay up here in the block, and you may see with this 2 and 3 and this 2 and 3, the 2 and 3 can only be in these 2 cells. So this is what Akash designed. He put a lot of hidden pairs in this pack. So this is a 2, 3 hidden pair, which leaves a 6, 7 naked pair in block 1. And then you can see the impact here of some more of these solves. With this 9 and this 9, you can solve for a 9 in block 4, displacing that 1. And then if you want to continue to follow the 9s, with this 9 cutting across the block, and this 9 coming down, you have a pointing pair of 9s in block 6. Since it's a pointing pair, you can displace that 9 and solve this cell now for a 9. And then follow these 2 9s and solve for a 9 here in block 8. And now look at the solves you made. We didn't put too many solves in, but each of these have a special function. So there's only 2 possibilities here. It's a one-step restriction, which means if you can solve one of the cells, or one of the candidates, in this case, you solve for a 9, you know you can solve this cell right away for a 3, and then solve that for a 9. This reduces your time tremendously because you get multiple solved cells very quickly when you can spot these types of restrictions. Same thing with this 4. You can displace that 4 and solve this cell now for a 4. But we're not done either. Remember, we started here with these 9s, these 4s. Well, this 1 displaces a 1 right there. And now you can solve this cell for a 1. And what's the impact of that? Look across the row here. 1, 3, 4, 7, 8, 9, you have 2, 5, and a 6. We have a 2 in the block, 5 in the row. So you can solve this cell now for a 6, which gives you a 2, 5 naked pair. Okay, what's the impact of this 6? Well, look in the column. Now you can disambiguate the 7, 6 right there. Disambiguate the 6, 7 right there. All those solves very quickly. And then you might notice you have a full house, 8 of 9 cells filled out. This has to be a 7 now. And then with this 7, you can solve this cell for a 7, and it leaves 2 possibilities for 7 in block 5. Look back here in block 9. Here's where the real impact is. You have a 1, you have this 2, 5, 4, 7, and 9. You have 3, 6, and 8 to finish this block. Well, with the 6, 8 here, you can see that's a 3 and that's a 6, 8. So you have reduced the 2 possibilities of the red cell to a 6 or an 8. Which one is it? Well, you got to keep solving to figure that out. With this 3, you now have a full house in column 1. So now that has to be your 2. You also might notice with these 9s and this 9, you can solve for a 9 right here. And this sets up a beautiful combination that Akash put in this puzzle. Now you see how this 2 cuts across row 5, and this 2 comes down, column 6. It means the 2s are restricted to these 2 spots, but the 7s were restricted there as well. And you might see there's an extra digit there, right? There's a 5 there. What do we do about that? Well, this is a hidden pair 2, 7. They can only go in those 2 cells in this block. So you can safely displace that 5 and solve this cell now for a 5. This is beautiful, beautiful logic. And now you know these 2 cells have to be a 2, 7. And so it restricts what can be in the rest of this column. The only thing missing now is a 5. So you can solve that for a 5. Look at the impact. Displace that 5, solve this cell now for a 5. And what you have left is a 3 and an 8. Since you have the 3 right here, you now know this has to be the 8, this has to be your 3. Displace this 8, solve this cell now for an 8. With this 3, disambiguate the 2, 3 here. Row impact on row, column, and block, right? This 2 cuts across, so this has to be a 2. This has to be your 6. And now you can solve the red cell. With this 6, that's going to be an 8, and the red cell is a 6. And like I said, if you have the rest of the pack, you can decode the 6 for a letter, finish the other 4 puzzles, give me the final solution before the 20th of the month, and I'll give you a shout out, just like my other members, for getting the correct solution. This is how you build your brain resilience, and using these techniques, you're going to get so much faster. I guarantee you're going to cut your solve time by minutes, 50% faster than you normally could solve. All right, after doing this 6, where can we go? Always look at the full houses if you can, because you know this is a guaranteed solve. This has to be a 6. Nothing else can fit in that column. And then you can move on from there. So that 6 and this 6, you can actually displace that 9, solve this cell for a 9. Moving on with this 6 now and this 6, solve this cell for a 6. And then you can see you just have 2, 7 remaining right there. I'll mark that very quickly, but we can do better than that, because you can also see that you have a full house here. So what's remaining? You just need your 3. So this 3 and this 3 and a 3 right here. Solve this for a 3. 2 digits remaining, a 5 and a 7. Pull that 5 over. So there's your 5 and there's your 7. Disambiguate the 2, 7. Always go and finish those marks. This will make the quickest solving for you, because you reduce that clutter right away. That's a 2, that's a 7, that's a 2. We use all those marks to great benefit. Look at the whole block. Figure out which 2 of these you need. You got the 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. You just need a 6 and a 7. Pull that 6 over. Here's your 6, and your last digit is a 7. Now apply the techniques you just learned to solve this next puzzle in half your normal time. Thank you so much for watching.